Jesus directed his gaze upward and prayed, I am asking on their behalf. I'm not asking on behalf of the world, but on behalf of those whom you gave me, because they are yours. Please be seated. Unlike Matthew's gospel, we don't find Jesus praying in a garden on the night of his betrayal, agonizing over his impending suffering, saying, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. Today, we continue our trek through Jesus' final discourse in John's gospel, his final sermon during the Last Supper, which stretches a full 4 chapters. And it's sort of like one of my clergy friends from Jordan used to always say, why did Judas betray Jesus? Because he just couldn't stop talking. So the main course has ended hours ago. The plates, cups, and utensils long been cleared. And Jesus knows that at this moment, the details of what is about to happen are probably more than his friends can bear. So instead of talking about his death, he refers to his departure, or his going to prepare a place for them, and in today's lesson, his time of glory. In his prayer, Jesus' greatest concern seems to be more for the trauma and the struggle, perhaps the PTSD his friends will experience as they witness his death, and the difficulties they will face as they make the decision whether continue following in his footsteps in his ministry or simply going back to catching fish. To me, this section of John's gospel, known as the high priestly prayer, is the real Lord's Prayer. It's his own prayer, and there's nothing formulaic about it whatsoever. Unlike in Matthew 6, Jesus is not kind of teaching his followers how to cover their bases with some prayerful checklist. First, begin your prayer with praising God. Hallowed be thy name. May we set aside our own desires for God's will. Next, ask for our daily bread, our food, our other necessities of life. We need all that stuff. Then sprinkle in a little forgiveness for the ways we all mess up. Certainly we need that. I'm never sure how this was translated as trespasses. And then, of course, concluding with save us from the ultimate judgment from which we all fall short. Yes, I think that covers it all, Jesus may have thought, and we call it the Lord's Prayer. However, the prayer Jesus offers in the lesson today is raw. It's messy. Sometimes it does seem like he's rambling. It can be hard to follow. Perhaps he is fumbling for the words that express his most heartfelt desires. I always felt like Jesus prays the way a worried parent would pray for their children as they tuck them in at night, or perhaps around the dinner table, or perhaps when they know the direction they're headed may not be so easy. Could be similar to the way I have prayed for many of my dear ones in their times of tremendous difficulty and great joy. In my intercessory prayers, I strive to convey my deepest hopes and wishes for those who are suffering, perhaps, undergoing medical procedures, those embarking on new paths in life, new jobs or relationships, or perhaps even the loss of the employment they love so dearly. And I've often prayed with those who are taking their final breaths in this world. And in these prayers, I not only try to convey my deepest wishes, but I also strive to include the basis for those wishes. God's unlimited love for creation, for all humanity, is demonstrated by his presence in Jesus. Jesus' prayer is similarly deeply earnest yet instructive, conveying his own heartfelt understanding of God's compassion and mercy. I realize that many people struggle with prayer. I wonder if those in our first reading from Acts struggled to pray between the ascension, Jesus' departure in the clouds, and the coming of his presence again in the Spirit. We may struggle with prayer in many ways. We may be unsure what to pray. We may have many tough questions about prayer. We may even wonder at times if there's anyone on the other end of the line listening, or whether God actually intervenes in the affairs of our world. And what role do our own petitions make? What difference do they make? Or perhaps what difference does our lack thereof make when we fail to ask for God's mercy or presence in our own struggles? Or what role does God play, or what involvement in our great concerns? Is it possible for prayer to soften our own hearts, to change us, or to change those around us? These are tough questions. They're challenging questions that I know many of you struggle with. But the one thing we do know is that throughout the Gospels, Jesus prays. He sets time aside to be in silence. He's not afraid to pour out his heart before God, expressing his deepest struggles, desires, and concerns, as we just heard. Recently heard a poem by Kevin Hart called Prayer on Padraig-O-Tuama's poetry podcast. And it's unclear in his poem exactly whom Kevin is addressing as he yearns for the transcendent to draw ever closer to his own life, to help relieve him of his self-doubts and personal negativities and the little or many crucifixions each of us experiences in this world. He seems to long for a time when encountering the mysterious and magical was much simpler, and that he might have greater trust in the goodness which surrounds us. Though unnamed, he seems to have hope that there is something more that permeates our world. Here is the poem Prayer by Kevin Hart. Oh, come in any way you want. In morning sunlight, fooling in the leaves, or in thick bouts of rain that soak my head because of what the darkness said. Or come, though far too slowly for my eye to see, like a dark hair that fades to gray. Come with the wind that wraps my house, or winter light that slants upon a page, because the beast is stirring in its cage. Or come in raw and ragged smells of gum leaves dangling down at noon, or in the undertow of love when she's away, because a night creeps through the day. Come as you used to years ago, when I first fell for you, in the deep calm of an autumn morning, beginning with the cooing of a dove, because of love, the lightest love. Or if that's not your ways these days, because of me, because of something dead in me, come like a jagged knife in my gut, because your touch will surely cut. Come any way you want, but come. Otuma reminds his listeners that the word prayer comes from the French word prier, which means to ask. And then he sort of makes an inventory of all the asks in this prayer. Come in any way you want, or come though far too slowly for my eye to see. Come with the wind that wraps my house, or winter light that slants upon a page. As the poem continues, the softening, the softness of the early verses sort of begins to wane, and the yearning comes to a crescendo. Come in raw and ragged smells of gum leaves dangling down at noon, in the undertow of love when she's away. Come as you used to years ago. Come like a jagged knife into my gut. Come any way you want. Throughout this poem, 5 reasons are listed for summoning this unknown you, this someone or something that remains unnamed because of what the darkness said, because of the beast stirring in its cage, because of a night that creeps through the day, because of love, the lightest love, and finally, because your touch will surely cut. I was very drawn to this poem because it seems to perfectly characterize the jumbling perspective of my own prayers at times. Perhaps if the poem wasn't titled prayer, we might not even recognize it as such. However, there is a deep longing for something beyond human understanding. This longing feels very familiar, very recognizable. As well, all the becauses, the reasons we yearn for a higher presence in our own life, and this desire that we need something outside ourselves to relieve us of our self-doubt and the beasts within us stirring in their cage. Jesus' final earthly act is to pour out his greatest longings in prayer. And above all, he asked for the continued protection and safety of his companions, despite the fact that they or we will face our own time of glory, our own time of suffering or crisis, our time to make the decision whether to follow in his footsteps or cast a lure into a lake. In the midst of this, his deepest desire is for unity. It reflects his fear that we might fall into disarray, into petty arguments and divisions, bickering and animosity with one another. Jesus realized that the stakes could not be greater. Failure would mean propagating many of the false concepts of God as vindictive, judgmental, angry, and ready to extract revenge on his children. Failure would mean to continue these lies. Failure would mean to miss the central message of Jesus' time with us and the revelation that God's true nature is love, unlimited, infinite, self-giving love. And it would mean to rob ourselves of the power of such love to bring positive change to our own life and to this hurting world. But isn't that what thy kingdom come really means? It's interesting that Jesus also lists his own becauses in his prayer, the reasons for his request. He says his because is that God, those I'm praying for, after all, are yours. They're yours because you gave them to me. Because now they know and recognize the truth that everything that is good, everything that is worthwhile, everything that is loving comes from you. And because the stakes couldn't be higher. Amen.